The Tent Project by artist John Naughton is the latest exhibit at the Grimsby Public Art Gallery.
The tent project. Well, for me personally, it starts with my experience camping. And I think that probably everybody has had an experience of some sort in a tent. Not always a fun experience. Some people have nightmare experiences of rainstorms and mosquitoes. But even if you haven't camped, everybody has built a tent with blankets under their coffee table or whatever in the backyard. So for me, it really starts from that experience. It starts from a cozy, kind of nostalgic, romanticized idea of sleeping in a tent in the wilderness and having a great time. But at a certain point, through my extensive camping experience, I realized what an incredible privilege it is to go camping. I think it's a privilege to be able to leave the luxury of my comfortable bed and say, hey, wouldn't it be novel if I could sleep on the ground? I'm aware of the fact that there are so many people that would never go camping as a choice. I won't sleep on the ground as a choice because I want to get away from it all, because they don't have as much to get away from. In fact, maybe they've been displaced by war in their country, or a disaster, an earthquake, or maybe they're homeless, and they have to live in a tent-like situation, not out of some kind of fun get away from it all experience, but rather out of necessity.
A high school art teacher, John Naughton, included elements in the tent project that visitors could interact with.
I find that some art really, especially contemporary art, doesn't always open a door for the viewer and doesn't always let you in easily. Sometimes it's very intellectual, and sometimes, quite frankly, it's inaccessible. I find that it's really important to allow people to engage in the work as fully as they can, and that might even mean, in many of the works in this show, that you can actually turn a crank, push a button, stick your head inside something. I want to give the viewer an immersive experience so that they're not just participating in the piece intellectually by thinking about it, which is great, I want them to do that, but to actually have a visceral response to it by getting inside and engaging with it.
John loves the fact that a tent can represent so many different things.
It's so interesting the way virtually the same object, a tent, can have so many different personas. That for me, it means going to Algonquin Provincial Park and sleeping in a tent with my family. But for others, they're in a tent in dire situation. They're escaping something. And yet it's virtually the same object. A tent is a tent. And yet a tent isn't a tent. I think that there are pieces in the show that explore the idea of the tent almost evolving beyond just being a functional utilitarian object, this thing that shelters you from the rain and the wind and so on, to becoming a symbol for something. Doing this project has really enlightened me about so many of these different worlds that are beyond the kind of the comfort and safety of my lovely little campsite, in Killarney Provincial Park.
The Tent Project will be on display at the Grimsby Public Art Gallery until August 12th. In Niagara, you're watching The Source.